Hello, this is TechMan88, and today I have to show you both a cobble farm and a tree farm sharing one single blast chamber. So the goal of this was not to have the fastest tree farm possible. I know Ilmango has done one that's a bit faster than this, but this is pretty fast for the level of simplicity that it has. So the way the double piston extender works is it has this redstone dot right here, which is normally directed into this redstone block. And instantly, when this gets pulled down, it's going to redirect into this piston, so it'll instantly push that forward. And then, when this redstone block gets down to this position, it's going to power this redstone. That's 3 game ticks after it depowers this one. And that's the perfect time to turn on this second set of pistons. And then it gets pushed up and it depowers these first, and then again 3 game ticks later it's going to redirect this redstone signal, pulling back this piston. So that's pretty much the fastest you can run one of these double piston extenders. And I know these are usually a pain to do, but for a tree farm scenario where you don't need to pull back this set of blocks, these don't affect the tree growth. This is quite a good way to do it, I think, and it's pretty simple. You just need the slime and redstone. So if you don't know about it and you're trying to do precise timing stuff, the carpet mod by Nembon is invaluable. So I can slow down the tick rate and inspect how these pistons are operating. So first thing it does is a tree grows, and that's detected by this comparator, which can read the dispenser behind it, because it's a solid block. So that comparator puts out a value, and the main trigger for these pistons is this piston right here, which normally it's powering this piston, pushing it up, but instantly when this gets pushed down by this signal, when the tree grows, it's going to retract this signal. So I think it's about 2 game ticks after the tree grows, which is quite an acceptable value. Ilmango's very old 1.8 tree design, it actually does that in 0 ticks, but that requires a bunch of, it's a lot more complicated redstone. You need instant bud switches. And another part about this piston right here actually acts as a signal extender. So if you took this value straight out of this redstone, it's not quite long enough to do it. So this pushes down, it instantly pulls this one down, but then when it gets retracted, it takes 3 game ticks to actually repower this redstone. And that introduces a little speed loss, but I think for the simplicity that's quite acceptable. So another part of this main trigger circuit design is that it has a simple clock right here using the comparator in subtract mode, and this repeater put a signal into the side. And what that does, if it can't push the block, it's going to keep trying to push it. So I just put an obsidian block to stop it. And this is by design. This actually makes part of the tree farm simpler. The part where it detects and does something like blowing up the blocks over here with TNT, or when it just needs to push the pistons. It pushes the pistons 3 times, and then the 4th time it's going to blow up a TNT. And this is the same design I showed in a cobble farm in an earlier video, but I needed to make a bunch of changes so that I could add a tree farm to it as well, and share a bunch of this logic. So yeah, it's going to keep trying to push that, and if I remove that, it's going to recover. And that's also a good demonstration of how this is pretty foolproof. It's hard to actually break it, because it does this kind of busy wait. If you know about programming, then I can turn it off like that. So the way it detects whether it can actually push the tree, when it can't push the tree, that signals it to do the logic over here on this blast chamber. So the way it detects it is it has a signal that comes out of the main trigger for the system, and runs into a monostable, and then puts a delay on it. and it runs it into the side of this back of this comparator. But then at the same time, a signal when these logs actually move, it puts in a signal to the side at the exact same time. So you can see when it can push, it's not going to trigger this comparator. And just a second, you'll see it actually trigger. So yeah, there it triggered because this repeater from the side didn't turn on. And I think that does have to be in compare mode, or subtract mode, with the light on right here. Then this comparator right here, it goes into this cooldown clock, which is attached to a piston. So this cooldown clock is kind of like spam protection. So if it keeps trying to push the tree over and over, the comparator is going to keep turning on over and over again. And you don't want to trigger this over and over when that happens. So that's the reason for the cooldown clock. And when this piston gets pushed up, it's going to also push up this observer, and that's going to trigger this block, and that's going to operate this 4 counter that I described in the cobble farm. And just a reminder about how this works, in case you didn't watch that. So this observer gets pushed back and forth, and when the observer goes forward, it's going to trigger this piston right here. But when it goes forward or backwards, it's going to trigger this repeater right here. And then when this observer here gets pulled back, it's going to put in a signal to the side of this repeater, and it's going to lock it, preventing the signal to come out. So that was probably a confusing explanation. But this overall is just a very simple 4 counter. So it's going to do 3 times on this line, which just pushes the pistons, and then 1 time on this line. And I would like to have a simpler or faster system than this. Like this has a 4 tick delay minimum, so that the logic works properly. The timing is all good. But yeah, if you can figure out a faster and better version than that, please make a comment or something. So the operation of this tree farm is pretty standard. You just turn on that clock right there, and then you just sit here and place saplings. This is set up for birch right now. For oak, you have to have a blocker on top. But yeah, just sit here, and I use a auto hotkey script to place the saplings, and I've easily generated many double chests of logs like this. So yeah, then when you're done, you just switch that off. And then this also has a cobble farm, which I haven't showed yet. This is basically the same as my previous video on a cobble farm. It's rearranged. But yeah, it's just a simple standard cobble farm. And it uses the same detector whether it can push blocks. And that can feed into the same cooldown that I described just a second ago. So the two of those, it's a really easy way to hook a cobble farm into a wood farm, or vice versa. I mean, make both at once probably. And the logic, I think, is pretty simple for what it does. There's obviously faster ways to make a cobble farm. I think my previous cobble farm is actually faster. It uses an armor stand to detect when the cobble gets up to this height, or this height right here. And also the TNT dispenser is exactly the same. Just this simpler design, the aligner and delayer, so that it drops and explodes like right about here. And I also took out a couple of rows of pistons back here. Just like, you could probably take out that one too. That's just because this is not totally reliable. So what this does is it means that the TNT will have to drop down at least this height. Now you can't run the tree farm at the same time that you're running the cobble farm, just in case you make that mistake. So yeah, if you accidentally do something like that, you want to turn everything off and then you just want to break one of these redstones, and that'll allow this 4 counter to increment. So I wanted to go into more detail about the technicalities of this. So I have a command block over here. It's going to destroy blocks, so I can just run this freely. And then I have a button over here which will place logs, and it's going to harvest them, just simulating whether a tree grew. And I also have another one here which just places blocks, does a fill, replace air. So that's going to run at maximum speed. This is what it would look like running maximum speed. I don't think you could even grow trees this fast. So yeah, now I'm going to use the carpet mud feature, tick freeze, so I can place a tree, and you can see it didn't actually pop up yet because I haven't stepped the game. So places a tree. I'm going to call that tick number 1. Then I'll go through step by step. So that's tick number 2, 3. And on the 3rd tick, it's going to push down this piston, which instantly retracts this piston. This isn't actually down yet. This is kind of a visual glitch. So yeah, it redirects the signal, and this is, again, on the 3rd tick. It's already pushed the pistons up here. So then 4, 5, okay, so on the 5th tick, it's already pushed out the 2nd set of pistons, which pushes this this column of wood over, and pushes the wood out of the way. So then, I forgot, I lost count. I think that's number 6, 7, 8, 9. So then it's already retracted these blocks. 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now the signal is actually redirected. So yeah, I think that's 12 game ticks. I've timed it a couple times. I think it's 12 game ticks. So yeah, of course you can do this a lot faster with using some of that ilmango magic and some of the real expert tree farm guys. But yeah, for this purpose of the simple tree farm, this is pretty much, I think, as good as you're going to get for the simplicity of it. So just out of curiosity, I loaded up ilmango's 1.8 tree farm, very fast tree farm, probably theoretically the fastest, and I wanted to see what kind of performance this gets. So the game is frozen. It's in carpet mod. It actually still works in 1.3.1. So I'm gonna start the timing when the tree grows. Okay, so that'll be tick number 1, and I'm inside some stuff. So tick number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think my tree farm might actually be faster, just by a tiny bit, and I don't think mine is totally optimized either. I actually wonder why this is slightly slower. So I retested it. It seems to be confirmed 13 game ticks, so mine is actually faster, surprisingly. So I'm gonna try it again and kind of walk you through how this machine actually works. Okay, so the tree grew there, and it's detected by these bud detectors. Seem to be stuck. Yeah. So they actually sit right here. That was tick number 1. These are actually pistons. They're just disappeared because that's how the visual stuff works. So I think the reason mine works faster, you see these pistons over here retracted? That doesn't happen in mine, and that seems to actually introduce another game tick of delay. So yeah, the pistons over here have to extend forward and then pull back again. So I don't mean to say that this tree farm isn't faster overall. It is actually faster because it uses the 4 dispensers. I'm mostly talking about the double piston extender, which is the main limiter in the speed of this. And I'm just going to test it one more time using the same methodology. I'm going to start it when the tree grows. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And these pistons haven't actually fully retracted at this point, but this is just going to be my basis of comparison. So that is 13. I think mine is confirmed faster, and I'm going to go back into that again and just reconfirm this. So I'm back in my world. I'm going to try and duplicate that same methodology. So place the sapling, and it's frozen, and I can step it. But I wanted to use the exact same conditions. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, you can see the pistons are already back. And again, this probably isn't accurate. The pistons are still moving at this point. This block right here is still technically occupied by something that would probably inhibit tree growth. But yeah, this is actually faster. I'm quite surprised. So I would also like to go through some of the older tree farms, the fastest tree farms possible, which are done by a couple guys, Ilmango and GU Maple, and I think Ilmango mentioned somebody else. But this is Ilmango's better birch farm, which uses better piston triggering over here. I'm just, of course, viewing a video from Ilmango. And that seems to fix the performance issue. So he's getting both the 0 tick response to it, and then just slightly faster piston stuff. So he addressed whatever I was talking about in his previous design, which is about half the logs per hour. So in Ilmango's really fast birch farm, he said this:
I would even go as far as to say you can't make a faster birch tree farm, and the reason is that the limiting factor is the double piston extender. You can't make it any faster than 9 game ticks.
Some people did manage to make a faster birch farm than that, and they did that by avoiding just having a single set of pistons to push the wood back and forth, or to push it out. So in this case right here, by GU Maple, and I think some of the other people on their server, the Octopus server, I guess. So it can push these logs both to the right and left, and that overcomes that 9 game tick limit that Ilmango talked about. So as it stands in terms of the single core farms where they just have one single sapling that you place, this I think is the fastest, and the record is unbeaten. So Ilmango's next design, which I'll cover right now. So here's Ilmango's even faster design. This is the dual core design because it grows two of these birch logs at once. And it'll show it in action in just a second so you can get the general gist. So yeah, it's going to push these over from the side 2 at once. And that's how he gets more speed than GU Maples, but it's kind of a different category because it's the dual core instead of single core. And this is, of course, November 4th, 2015. So back when they were using withers, and there might be something better by now. So you can use this for both birch and oak logs. Like I think jungle might be a candidate, but that doesn't give a very high sapling drop. So the problem with oak, and the reason you need a blocker up here, is that if you just grow oak normally, you're going to end up with these blocks like this. And the problem with this type of block is going to interrupt the leaf crushers. So, like if you put some sort of random block up here, then it's going to stop these oak logs from coming out. Another technical note on this, you might have noticed that this bottommost one actually comes out one block further. And the reason for that is you need to cause block updates on this block. So you look at the power level over here. That's going from 14 to 15. And that causes the block update on the piston. And that's going to cause a block update on the rest of the pistons in this row. This over here is just a quick demo of what I was just talking about. Why that doesn't cause block updates. So I'm doing the same sort of thing right here. I'm redirecting this redstone, so now it's pointing into the redstone block. Then when I push it up, it's actually pushing into the piston, but that doesn't cause a block update because the signal strength doesn't change. But then if I extend it out here, now it's going to cause a block updates, and that's of course because the redstone signal strength is changing here, and that's updating the piston next to it. So if you build something like this, you might not have this problem. There might be a neighboring block that updates it, but it's something to pay attention to. And this is not laggy at all because it's just going from signal strength 15 to 14. So that'll be minimal block updates that are caused. So building the leaf crushers is pretty standard type of thing. I'm just doing an arrangement kind of like this. So I'm just finishing up now. You don't have to use logs for this part. You can just use dirt if you want. And I built these 6 high, so 6 layers of pistons, and then the redstone behind it to trigger it. And this is probably kind of laggy in general, but it's easy. And when you're building this, it might be easier just to build up with these blocks and place the pistons as you're doing it, like in survival mode. That might be easier. And another note about this is that you want a 2-tick delay on this upper repeater, and this has to do with accidentally doing a 0-tick pulse on some of these pistons over here. That is actually a problem. I ran into it when I built it in survival. So yeah, make sure this is on a 2-tick delay. So far it seems good. I'll just run it for a little bit. Actually, there might be some saplings lost, so I'm gonna go fix that. Yeah, that already seems like it's gonna give me back enough saplings. Filled out some blocks over here, and that's going to cause the saplings to drop mostly back down. Alright, so we'll provide a world download, and it's going to come with these 2 things right here. The one over here is the testing rig that I have, and it should all be set up fine. I actually had to rebuild part of it because I accidentally loaded from a structure block when I shouldn't have. So yeah, it should match the video, as far as I know. So yeah, like the birch logs, and then you can come up here and add like some random block, and that'll prevent higher tree growth if you put it up there. And another note, if you noticed, I made this shorter, so I had an 8 high version, but actually the 6 high version is probably all you would ever need, because it works fine with birch and oak with this blast chamber, because that's 6 high by 7 wide. So yeah, I switched to oak now, and these just auto-place the saplings. And the button right here, the lever, that's going to remove the leaves, which I usually leave on because it makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. So I'll turn that off, and then this one over here is to instantly place the logs. So it's just filling the blocks here, fill, replace, air. And that's going to be like a stress test. So this video has probably gone on long enough, but this seems to work just fine. The one with the leaf crushers. Yeah, so like birch, you don't have to do anything to do that. Oak as well. I'll leave this blocker up here, so you can do that. But if you're doing birch, you would want to remove this block. That'll give the 5 to 7 high trees. That's what birch does. But yeah, I'll just leave that there just for safety. And then you can turn that off and turn this off right here. I'll leave that off. So you'll have to turn it on to actually run it. And then this over here, this is the cobble farm. And this should reliably switch between the two modes. Anyway, I hope you found this informative, helpful, or whatever. I think this is probably a very good thing to use in Minecraft 1.13.1 and maybe other versions. I think it probably would work in many other versions other than 1.13.1. But yeah, another note is I think it's good to just make sure the designs work or optimal or whatever. Lots of stuff changes between versions, so yeah. Anyway, goodbye.